Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Trader Tim from eMiniMine doing a trade recap for the week here. It's February 11th, 2021. And before we run into today and yesterday's trades, just wanted to briefly highlight the daily chart here. Today's trading was all encompassed within yesterday's trading, so you can see the high and low of yesterday are marked, and all of today an inside day. And look at the tails that we have both yesterday and today. Bottoming tails, meaning we traded lower intraday and then rallied into the close. Earlier in the day, it was feeling like a pullback to maybe something like this on the daily chart, 3800 area would be likely. But seeing that we've rallied yet again into the close, the market just doesn't want to seem to sell off and get any follow through. So you can see yesterday's low broke the prior candle's low, and I was looking for some follow through today, but we did not get it. So we have a potential inverted head and shoulders where this is the left shoulder, this is the head, and if we dipped something like to that 50% retracement long, that could round out the right shoulder, but we may end up just kind of drifting here lower to sideways, sort of drifting sideways towards this uptrend line of the bottom of the channel. So we'll just kind of wait and see. Things have been all right. Yesterday had an awesome winner that we'll talk about on the short side, but let's first run through today's trades. So we have, go to the 5-minute chart. Here's the open. We gapped up. Not a huge gap, but it did give us a gap fill that was below where we opened. And the first thing I did this morning, I had drawn up the high to low, really the first halfway back for the day after the 15-minute mark. There really wasn't much going on in the first 15 minutes. We had pretty much just failure of a long, failure of a short, failure of a long, failure of a short. Nothing going on in there. So if we just box out that area and say, okay, we're going to wait until we get out of this zone, which happened to be the first 15 minutes, so great reason to not trade the first 15 minutes. Then we can look for an opportunity to get in. And if you just take from highs of the morning down to lows, there was a short setup at 39.1475. Unfortunately, it came to my order and I did not get filled. So it happens. Typically, this is why I put my order in front of the 50%, but there are going to be times where price just comes up and touches your order and you don't get a fill. So nonetheless, we rolled over. There was a short opportunity here just after, actually this was the one that I chose to actually pass on because we had a low tick that came in at 7:58, and then this was like right on top of the kind of that news half hour. And so yes, it did work out, but looking at statistically over hundreds and hundreds of trades, I don't like to put on a trade right before in that minute before the top of the hour. So one good thing you can do is if you go look at all your trades that occurred a minute or two before that 8 o'clock time frame, or Eastern time, it'd be 10 o'clock. Look at all of your trades that are exactly at that time. And then you can see, okay, am I profitable or am I not? So let's see, running through my notes here, at 8:01, we had a low tick, another low tick, and then we were 30 minutes had gone by, so that was the low of the first 30-minute range. If I pull up my log, we've got a long setup that's set up like this here at 9:50, and that traded to its target. If we extend the anchor point down to get the full halfway back of the day, we can see that this bounce was still a good 2 points away from the halfway back short. So I'm okay taking a long as long as we don't stop right at the short. And then so that one traded to its negative 23% target, trailing the next 61.8 is where you get taken out. 807 actually set up in a short. Once that 61.8 broke here, we can draw up a short from highs to lows that followed that halfway back, and that one again made it to its first target, trailing the stop, and then got taken out. So at this point, it's like, well, couldn't get a lot of momentum to the long side, didn't have a lot of momentum to the downside either. One of the reasons I really like the long down here was using the anchor point from yesterday afternoon to this morning's high. Gave us a larger 50% retracement long. We also had the bounce off the bottom of the first 30-minute range. So this was a very nice long setup. Ended up going for a 3-point first target and then another point or so on the trail stop. But then nothing on the short. And so at this point, we're kind of stuck between the two 50s. And you can really get chopped up if you try trading within this range. So the next trade I took was actually up here when we broke the 60-1/8 of the short. I drew from the anchor point below the 50% to the anchor point above. And this is a setup that I take a fair bit. It's a little bit higher risk, but what happens is you have the support down here. This is kind of the failure point where we've failed the opposing short. And if the market's going to go higher, it will typically do it from this point. Well, today we did not go higher, and thus ended up being a stop out, and then we rolled over to the downside. But again, look at all of the trade setups that occur at that point where you are drawing the setup that it starts before the 50%, and the other anchor is on the other side of the 60-1/8. And then compare all of those setups to each other. So, you're only seeing a snapshot of one of these setups, but, if I go back through my last 200 times that I've taken this setup, okay, then we see this is just one failure of, a small statistical set, which is net positive for that particular setup. So as we go to, so those are the three setups I had for today. As we go to yesterday's trade now, it was a pretty big winner. And remember, this is just one trade out of a larger statistical set. So this is going to be a little bit of an outlier, I would call it. Roughly 11% of my trades go for more than 10 points. Like you get that runner, at least from 2020. That's what my numbers spit out at me. So this one's a bit of an outlier here, but it does do you need these outliers as long as they're big winners. We don't ever want to have big losers, but these outliers do certainly come in handy. It was 8:06, so yesterday, here we are yesterday, if I back up on the 5-minute chart, drawing from high to low of the morning at that roughly half-hour mark. We set up in a halfway back short, again waiting for the short to get some resistance or identify some resistance, and then I can come in and draw up the next retracement using this as the swing low. Going from high, I used this 804 swing low, and then that was my entry at 806 short. And so came down, got the 3-point first target, trailing my stop above the 60-1/8 by, when the rounded number here is 0.74, and when the actual number is 0.74, and if I round up to the nearest tick is 0.75, add your 2 ticks from there. If it was 0.51, well then going to 0.75 and adding 1 tick is almost a 2-tick increment. So the idea is give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. And so just by trailing swing highs here on the way down, we pretty much rode this thing most of the way down and was taken out down here. So pretty easy to manage once you're in it if you have a trail stop technique that you're going to follow. So just by putting my stop above the swing high, sitting on my hands, letting the market roll over, at the next little bounce, let it come down and make a new low, and then take the stop from that prior swing high and move it down to the next swing high. And then you got to let the market run, sit on those hands, let it bounce. Once it sells off, then you can bring your stop down to the next swing high, and so on and so forth. This one thing I wanted to point out, this little scenario here. See how this candle, here's the candle's high, and then here is the candle's low. And so these couple of candles are inside. So I don't bring my stop down above this candle here because its high is low. It doesn't really protrude above the recent candle's high. So my stop, I left it a little bit higher up here is where I brought it down to. So yeah, that was a good 25 point, 3-point first target, and then in the first half, and then 25 points on the second half. So pretty nice. That was the only trade I had yesterday. And then Tuesday's trades, you can find those in the member dashboard, just under the live trading sessions, because we do those live on Tuesdays. So that's what I've got for trades for the week. If you have questions or if you like the video, drop a note in the comments below. I hope everyone has a great weekend and happy trading.